welcome to Vital Life Energy. We are running a podcast each week for you all just to give you more detailed information about how and what we do to help those that we've worked with for over 30 years and the program of Vital Life Energy formulas. We're not treating or diagnosing or curing or professing of any cure of any sort of disease. Today's podcast is going to share a little bit about a couple of questions that have come up from patients this week. A lot of people have been concerned about their blood being thick, clotting, strokes, heart attacks, as well as blood pressure. And that's what I wanted to share with you all today. We all hear about alkalinity and how important water is and it to be alkaline. But it's just as essential with the food that you eat, that you have more fruits and vegetables, more whole foods, less processed foods, so that you are more alkaline. You get more enzymes from the fruits and vegetables than you do from other sources of food. You may remember Jefferson Campbell sharing over the years about homocysteine. I know I have an iris photo up there. That's what we use to analyze where imbalances are and deficiencies are. And that visual image is a starting point. And then as people do our program, then we show a photograph a month later, and then we compare and go over the changes. So it's a starting point. There is no perfect eye. Everybody shows up certain restrictions or resistance. Everybody shows up something, as there is no perfect eye. What I'm wanting to share is that you've heard about, and what Jeff has talked all about, homocysteine over the years. And you might remember, I think it's back in the 70s, there was a famous heart surgeon, Christian Barnard, that did a heart transplant and took out an old heart and put in a new heart and found that the same disease within 5 years was attacking the new heart. So he knew he did not cure the disease, that the disease was still there attacking the new heart from a heart transplant within 5 years. So then he started to research. Now remember, this is in your Vital Life Energy program. What he found in his research, to remove the homocysteine, which is a byproduct of protein that was creating plaque, blocking up the arteries, building up around the heart, affecting the blood vessels. What he found, it was a vitamin C and a bioflavonoid deficiency. It's a magnesium deficiency, which we're all very deficient in magnesium today. It was a B12 and a folic acid and a B6 deficiency. And of course, the amino acids, the building blocks that are essential to bind to the chemicals and remove the chemicals, methionine, cysteine, and taurine. Now you'll see it's part of the Vital Life Energy program. We have those nutrients very much in your programs, and the timing of taking them is essential to keep your liver healthy, because we're all bombarded by so much environmental chemical today. One of the main jobs of the liver is to break down the chemicals. By supplying nutrients to your liver timely in the morning, in the evening, and sometime in the middle of the day, is keeping your liver healthy to bind to these chemicals, to remove the chemicals so it doesn't keep producing more homocysteine, which is the byproduct of protein from chemical that the liver is producing. We naturally have this process happening in our liver because the chemical is foreign. It's not part of nature. It's not like picking an apple and eating an apple. It's foreign material. So naturally, the liver uses these vitamins and minerals and amino acids to bind to that foreign material to make it whole and try to protect us and remove it. If there's not enough of these nutrients, in the liver at the time that we're exposed to this environmental poisoning, then it's going to take it from wherever it can to take it to the liver, to have it in the bloodstream, because it doesn't want the plaque to block up, the homocysteine to block up the arteries to your heart, to your brain, because that's the priority. Proteins, our muscle is made up of. Our veins, our arteries, as well as our valves are made up of muscle tissue, which is the reason the Vital Life Energy Formulas was created 30 years ago, to constantly help us to regenerate and build the muscle tissue, not just in the muscle as our reserve, but also for the veins, the arteries, the valves. There are valves in the colon, and these valves in the colon are connected directly to the valves of the heart. And that comes from Dr. Randolph Stone, polarity therapy. What this famous doctor found, as I was sharing these nutrients that were lacking in the liver, that the disease in the heart was coming from the liver. But this is the miracle about nature. The liver is the most rejuvenating organ. You can have half your liver be calcified like a rock and not die of liver disease. That's how amazing the liver is. It is so forgiving, but it can only take on so much before it can't anymore. And what it does, because it knows the priority is for oxygen supply in the blood to the heart, to the brain, to the lungs, to the heart, to the brain, for survival. If there's not enough nutrients in the liver at the time when we're exposed or being bombarded by chemical, it's going to take the amino acids, the proteins, which our muscle is protein, and it's going to take it from the muscle and rob the muscle, break down the protein of the muscle to take it to your liver. It's going to take the mineral from the bloodstream, take it from the bone. It's going to take the B vitamins from the central nervous system, wherever it can, to make sure that that chemical is not overproducing homocysteine and blocking up the arteries, the heart, and affecting blood oxygenation to your brain. See the reason, the importance of being consistent with your Vital Life Energy Formulas and the combination of them, which was put together by Jeff and Elaine Campbell 30 years ago. As we share, we have treatments that also assist keeping your blood alkaline. In that, it's not just the water that we drink or the food that we eat, are a very important part of good health and well-being. It's also the movement and breaking down and tearing down the muscle, but it's the recovery. The important part is the recovery. When you train one day, if you do resistance training, recover the next. The recovery is the most important part of building the muscle tissue, building the veins, the arteries, the valves. Our liver is the most rejuvenating organ, as you've heard me share. The timing of the Vital Life Energy Formulas, if you can get them in before 7:30 a.m., and this is even if you're a shift worker, you just reverse it. Your nighttime drink becomes 7:30 and your morning drink becomes 9 p.m. in the evening. Light absorption, as you've heard us share a lot about, through the eyes to the pituitary, as the pituitary sends that light through to all the glands to stimulate the release of growth hormone. Circadian rhythm is not just for sleep, it's for every waking, sleeping hour. What we do through the day supports us at night. The body repairs and rebuilds while we sleep. Muscle regeneration happens while we sleep. Remember, the veins and the arteries and the valves are made up of muscle tissue. So that's the reason, if we can get our formulas in before 7:30 a.m. in the morning, when secretion of melatonin ceases, then we're boosting our melatonin before it switches off secretion. That 7:30 a.m. in the morning influences when secretion of melatonin starts at 9 p.m. in the evening. So again, we suggest to take your last amino mix at 9 p.m. in the evening because it stimulates your natural growth hormone for the melatonin secretion to start. For when you sleep, the body repairs and rebuilds. The muscle tissue rebuilds while we sleep. The valves, the arteries, the veins repair and rebuild while you sleep. The liver goes to work. As we know, at 3 a.m. when people wake up, that's the adrenaline, that's the high cortisol. That's when the adrenals switch on, but they switch off 12 hours later because everything in nature is cyclic. At 3 p.m. in the afternoon, they switch off, just like they switch on at 3 a.m. in the morning. They switch off, which is also the reason that a lot of us are looking for something around that time because we feel that slump in our energy levels, whether they're looking for coffee or sugar or carbohydrate to lift us up at that time, as we're needing to continually work at that time. In different countries, they have a siesta. If you're able to just lay down and take a load off and get your legs up in the afternoon at around that time for 10 minutes, get them above heart level, that helps you. It's very rejuvenating at that little time in the afternoon when the adrenals switch off. As we're sharing about the light absorption, through the eyes to the pituitary, that switches on our adrenals when the sun comes up, that switches off our adrenals when the sun comes down. That light absorption and the heating up of the skin is just as important as we absorb the light through the eyes, which is also the remember, you've heard us share to those of you that have been on our program and that are on our program, that the light in the morning time with your eyes closed and getting outside and getting that light in your eyes and just closing your eyes for 10 minutes or just for 2 minutes if you don't have a lot of time and just looking up to the sky. And I know in wintertime down there in the southern hemisphere, there's less light, but even behind the clouds, there's still the sun. So just close your eyes, go outside and just look up to the sky. And that light will stimulate our pituitary gland and stimulate the circadian rhythms to where the position of the sun is. As Jeff has written about the satellite of the sun, where the position of the sun is. Talking a little bit about blood platelets as we share with the program and the different platelets and red blood cells and white blood cells and lymph vessels and lymph nodes and connecting ducts and how they drain back and influence the blood vessels. 71% of our body's water is lymph. Just like the surface of the earth is surrounded with 70% or 71% water. So that's the reason it's important for us to understand about us using the nutrients on the timing that I'm sharing about, because they're stimulating the red blood cell production, the white blood cells, the T cells, and keeping our immune system strong, because the lymph circulation, the lymph nodes, the connecting ducts are all interconnected with draining back to the blood vessels. Everything moves back to the liver. How amazing our liver is, and everything moves back to it. So that's the reason we need to, and sharing the understanding of being consistent with the timing of your program. Platelets are cells that circulate within the blood, and they bind together when they recognize damaged blood vessels. They're very small and really can only be seen under a microscope. They're shaped like small plates in their non-active form. So when you cut yourself, for example, platelets bind to the site of the damaged vessel, causing blood clot. So it's how the blood stops, bleeding, how the blood starts to coagulate. When platelets actually receive a signal, they respond by traveling, obviously, to the area and transforming into their active formation. They make contact with a broken blood vessel, and they grow long tentacles that resemble a spider or an octopus. So, indirectly, our platelets are made from amino acids, arginine, cysteine, and glutamine. They activate the peptides and the polypeptides to produce the glycoproteins and the cytoskeletal proteins that activate your blood platelets. Nitric oxide is a very important part of these blood platelets, red blood cells, as well as your white blood cells. These blood platelets need the nitric oxide for the dilation and contraction of the blood vessels. The homocysteine from the famous heart surgeon Christian Barnard that did a first heart surgery and took out an old heart and knew he hadn't cured the disease, that the same disease was attacking the new heart, within 5 to 10 years, found in his research that it was a vitamin C, bioflavonoid, magnesium, B12, B6, folic acid, methionine, cysteine, taurine deficiency. Well, that's your program, everyone. The program's giving you the nitric oxide, the arginine, the citrulline that's needed to produce the nitric oxide for the blood vessels. Muscle tissue is what your blood vessels, your arteries, and your valves are made up of. The individual single forms of protein are the amino acids that we live off. They make the protein. The muscle rebuilding and regeneration happens in our sleep. Hence the reason I'm sharing the circadian rhythms and doing your program consistently and doing your best to get it in before 7:30 a.m. and then again sometime in the afternoon around 2 or 3, and then again at around 9 p.m. in the evening when the melatonin secretion starts. These platelets from arginine, cysteine, well, gosh, didn't cysteine have something to do with removing homocysteine? Because the questions have been coming up about blood clotting and strokes and heart attacks for people. But you can see how the program's been put together. It's not one amino acid, it's a combination. Yes, cysteine makes platelets, which help repair damaged blood vessels. But also cysteine removes homocysteine, which, remember, the homocysteine is the byproduct of protein that creates plaque that can build up in the arteries and around the heart. It's the cholesterol gets something to stuck to, which is the homocysteine. If there's lower levels of homocysteine, there's nothing for the cholesterol to get stuck to. Cholesterol makes hormone. We need the cholesterol. We need the fat. We need the essential fatty acids for the heart, for the nervous system, for the brain. It's also the reason we're big promoters of using the castor oil packs. The castor oil packs that we suggest is doing it not over the liver, doing it from the lower abdomen, from the belly button down to the pubic bone across the reproductive area, from the lower intestine. Why? Remember the lymphatic vessels, the connecting ducts, the lymph nodes drain into blood vessels. And where does it all head back to? Our liver. The most rejuvenating organ, the most incredible feminine organ in the human body is our liver. Keeping your liver healthy, rejuvenating daily, protects us, as we can't control what we're being exposed to in the outer environment, but we can in our own environment that we live in our physical body, when we step one with nature and we utilize the understanding of nature and nature cure. Using the amino acids as part of stepping one with nature and giving us the sulfur nutrients of the methionine, of cysteine, and then the taurine, which is also sulfur. We hear about taurine and taurine for the heart and taurine for the brain. The hypothalamus in the back of the brain, where these nutrients need to pass the blood-brain barrier. It's no good taking them if they don't pass the blood-brain barrier. Not all amino acids pass the blood-brain barrier, but taurine's one of them, and it's essential to pass the blood-brain barrier. Why? It's essential to pass the blood-brain barrier because it moves into the hypothalamus in the back of the brain that does what? Controls your blood pressure, controls your heartbeat, controls your water balance, controls your appetite, That taurine resides in that hypothalamus as well as your heart. The thymus gland in the middle of the chest there, the thymos, as they call it. In Greek understanding, it's called the soul, courage, and will. As many of you have heard, there are three different brains: the conscious brain, the brain itself, the subconscious brain, the colon, and then the thymus, the heart, the third brain. Everything works as a symphony in harmony. We're teaching you all how to listen to your body and what your symphony is doing, and to bring it back in and tune it up and bring it back into harmony. As the carceral packs that I'm sharing about, the Priors patches within the small intestine that work with the lymph nodes and the lymph vessels and the connecting ducts, particularly down our legs because we're doing it on the lower abdomen, but also we're helping the portal veins. We're helping those portal veins that connect from the intestine that supply rich nutrient blood back to the liver. Most rich nutrient blood moves back to the liver through the hepatic portal system, which is why we suggest the carceral packs to go on the lower abdomen. And using a small amount of oil, I know a lot of people smother the oil. It just makes a mess for everybody, so it puts people off doing the packs regularly. We suggest using a small amount of oil, but being consistent in doing your carceral packs, because each day that you use the castrol, it penetrates and it goes deeper. A small amount goes a long way. And that's being consistent and doing it regularly and putting it over the lower abdomen to help the portal veins to supply more rich nutrient blood back to your liver, the most rejuvenating organ. But not only that, the colon has valves, just like the heart has valves, just like the veins have valves. The large intestine and the valves within the large intestine have a direct connection to the valves of the heart. The peristalsis action of the colon is not just for us to eliminate, it's to move nutrient bifidus production round from the ascending, from the ileocecal valve through to the ascending and transverse colon to activate your neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters are stimulated, as we were just sharing about the subconscious brain, the colon. The bifidus alkaline forms of good bacteria in that ascending transverse colon activates the neurotransmitters for the release of melatonin, serotonin, and dopamine. Well, we were just talking about the sunlight and how important that it is to get the light in the eyes, but also to get the skin to heat up and sweat to absorb that D from the heating up of your skin and the cholesterol underneath the epidermis of your skin to heat that lining of the cholesterol up for you to synthesize vitamin D, absorb it from the sun to carry it into as a fat soluble vitamin to your liver. So your liver then sends it to your kidneys to activate the hormone production within the kidneys and the adrenals for red blood cells. We've just come back around to red blood cells and how the question that a lot of our patients have been asking about blood clotting, as well as, preventing strokes and heart attacks. There's a number of factors that come into play. It's keeping the colon and the peristalsis muscle moving, keeping those valves, which are made up of connected tissue. And how? Through the liver, through the bile production from the liver into the gallbladder, from the gallbladder that squeezes and releases that bile into your intestine to get that peristalsis muscle to move, not just to get the toxin to move out, but to get the alkaline form of the bifidus into the ascending transverse and increase that bifidus production to stimulate the neurotransmitters in the brain, but also to move the lymph from the Priors patches, which is why we promote the carceral packs on the abdominal for the Priors patches within the small intestine that work with the ileocecal valve and the spleen. Oh, now we're back to the spleen. What does the spleen do? What's its job? Well, it's got many functions, but one of its primary job is to regulate your platelets. Remember, plasma of the blood The body sends damaged cells into plasma of our blood. The platelets are regulated from the spleen. The spleen's part of our digestion. And yes, it's part of the lymph. The spleen's connected to the stomach. And when there's a lack of peptides, oh, that's amino acids. They give us the peptides. They produce the peptides that we need for the polypeptides to activate the digestion. The polypeptides stimulate the digestive enzymes, the hydrochloric acid, as well as pancreatic enzymes. So the pancreas is also connected to the spleen. The tail of the pancreas connects directly to the spleen. So the platelets within the spleen that is regulated from the spleen that removes damaged cells. That's one of the jobs of the spleen, is to remove damaged cells. If the liver's overloaded and it's bombarded with chemical and you don't have enough nutrients to bind to the chemical and chelate it out, then it's going to send it on. It's not going to keep it there in your blood because it knows the priority. It knows it's got to have the nutrients going to your heart, to your brain, to your lungs to keep you alive. It's not going to keep it in the blood. It's going to send it on. And of course, the spleen's going to come into play. And what's the body going to do? It's going to suck it back into your lymph system. And it's going to store it there because it knows, okay, I'm going to protect you at all costs, and I'm going to keep it here until you're able to remove it, until you're able to clear it out. As I was sharing about regeneration of muscle tissue happens when we sleep. It's not when we're up exercising, it's while we sleep. As the arteries and the veins are made up of muscle tissue. So your sleep and understanding your sleep cycle and the quality of your sleep, which is why doing your carceral packs when you're not sleeping well on the lower abdomen to increase the bifidus production and help the Priors patches that work with the spleen and the thymus. The thymus regulates melatonin. It actually stimulates melatonin if you're low in melatonin. It activates thyroxine in the thyroid. It regulates cortisol. Every cell in your body has cortisol receptors. Cortisol is important to reduce inflammation, but what's happening today is we're being overloaded, and so our adrenals are releasing excess cortisol. That brings on anxiety for people. Just taking a minute or 2 minutes in the morning time, and if you can, do it before you pick up your phone, and just going outside and looking up to the sky. If the sun's out, close your eyes and be with the light. The light is within us. The light is who we are. We live off that light of the sun. The healing happens in the subconscious, the feminine energy. The most rejuvenating organ is the liver. The liver wants to take care of us. We need to treat it well. We need to eat the right nutrients, stay hydrated, do our best at all costs, as alcohol is a poison to the liver, and to avoid that as much as we can, for that alcohol poisons. There's no thing good about alcohol. It destroys glutathione, the most powerful antioxidant. That glutathione, glutamine, cysteine, glycine, make glutathione. Well, that's in the Vital Life Energy formulas. So we're giving the body what it needs to make the glutathione the most powerful antioxidants. Those of you that know us for years, we talk all about doing enemas as coffee enemas. Again, another way to increase glutathione. We'll be sharing more to you in the time over the weeks and giving you more understanding about how we're helping you all with the functional understanding of how the body works together as a whole system, how the lymph vessels, the connecting ducts, the blood vessels, the muscle tissue of the arteries, the veins, and the valves, and how they're not just with the heart, but they're also the colon, how the colon's linked to the lungs, to the heart, and also the kidneys. There's a main artery, the renal artery, that connects directly from the heart, supplying blood to the kidneys. The splenic artery carries blood supply to the spleen, keeping the liver regenerating, as we were sharing about the famous heart surgeon that knew he hadn't cured the disease, that the disease was coming from the liver, is what we're teaching you all. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Look forward to sharing with you again on our podcast for Vital Life Energy Formulas. Enjoy your day.